you can buy them next door.
You know, Robert loves to go through.
I ended
the
up
Or you have to
pages.
buy the whole set, which you didn't want to
I
do.
do it online in the morning, but you guys do.
I just done
No.
screw tops.
Yeah, screw that, but so she cannot get to live there.
I don't have time to read them.
No, you don't.
I started that practice years ago
Online?
because when I get ready
We
to
are
see
going
it,
live now, so your speech
papers.
will be on. So everybody knows. Yeah. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ansardi,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present.
Chairman Bonnet,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Sudislotto,
Here,
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
President.
Thank you. And that brings us to communications, proclamations, and presentations. All right, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful fall day. Let me start on a somber note, and Commissioner Lauter, just want to express our condolences in the passing of your mother-in-law. I actually knew her as a young child. I remember her coming visiting us, and she was a very kind lady, and kind of a throwback from a different era, I think you would agree. An era that farmers, they all worked together, they shared their crops, shared their foods, had a lot of potlucks. I remember them coming visiting us when I first came from Poland, so
Thank you.
you're in our thoughts and prayers. And I believe the service is Saturday. There, if you saw the obituary, it was partially left out. It'll be reprinted tomorrow, I understand all the details there, so you have our condolences. If you look out the window, there should be some gentlemen out there working in our garden again, MSU. This is their last day out there. That's the MSU Master Garden class. They have been there through rain, snow, sleet, everything working. This morning I got here 8 o'clock. They were out there working, pulling the weeds, but they said this is their last day. So if we leave early, if you get out there, you see them out there, say thank you for their efforts. So that has turned out very well for us. As you remember, about 7, 8 years ago, we actually talked about removing that garden because there's so many weeds, and MSU came up to the plate and it's worked out extremely well. Probably the biggest issue, and spent a lot of time yesterday dealing with, is the Supreme Court decision on Friday. And I sent you all an update on it last night, but just briefly, I talked to Mr. David Stoker and Matt Norford from our law firm. I was on a couple conference calls with the health department and Michigan Association of Counties, and there seems to be a lot of confusion about that. So let me just try to explain. I'm not a legal counsel, so I want to paraphrase that, but what Mr. Stoker said, actually, the Supreme Court ruled on a request from a federal judge on a federal lawsuit. There's a federal lawsuit about the governor's authority. The judge asked the Supreme Court to make a decision on the governor's authority and the law. So technically, they ruled on a federal request from a judge. The judge will probably obviously agree with that and issue an order shortly, but technically it was not a Michigan case, and it was a response to a request from a federal judge to give their opinion on a lawsuit. So that's important. The federal judge will probably follow up, issue a ruling shortly, but technically that's the reason there's been some debate about it. Also, under the Michigan Supreme Court rules, and this happens about 95% of the time, the party that is not successful has a right to ask for reconsideration, and which the governor did yesterday afternoon. And in that case, almost every time that's granted, and there's a 21-day stay in that decision. So the governor officially asked for that yesterday afternoon to happen. Also, the state health department has had executive orders in place and issued a new one yesterday. I think I sent it to all of you. You've seen that. And those pretty much cover everything. So for now, we're being told it's business as it was last week, which means we can still host our virtual meetings. We're still under the new guidelines. As you see, there's more chairs in this room now. We went from being 10 in the room to now with the commissioners and guests, we can have up to 13 guests in the room and still be in compliance. Mr. Stoker will be issuing a formal letter to all counties, and the Michigan Association of Counties will be sending out probably in a day or two. But as of now, that's where we stand, that the Health Department orders, and there's no legal challenges to the authority of the Health Department issuing those orders. So that's as we are as of now. Next topic, we had a conference call last week with Commissioner Rushton and Commissioner Wessel about the November 5th presentation by Dr. Diane Emling. And we've had some community people part of that discussion. And it's November 5th from 9 to 11. I think all of you have books now, correct? And I've had a lot of calls from township officials, road commission, so forth, wanting to participate, but because of the restriction in this room, we cannot allow that. But we are broadcasting live, and it will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards. And we have invited the department heads to be here in the room, because we can still do that and be within compliance. But it is being broadcast live, and it is being videotaped. Quite a few townships, at least 2 that I know of, and I know the Road Commission has reached out to Dr. Emling asking if she could do the same presentation for them. So you'll have more about that. And we're working on a panel discussion, and Commissioner Rushton or Wessel, do you want to comment on that? On where we are with that?
Commissioner Rushton, that's your hand.
I have a question before we start discussion. You know, we've talked about having that discussion here in this room, and my question to you is, if we use the facility in the lower level, will that allow for more attendees to participate on the November 5th?
It could. The problem with that is we broadcast here through we could take that, but the camera and the recording, the clerk's recording is here, and this is not portable. So the recording of it is not portable. I don't think it's portable, is it?
I think the capacity down there is the same, because I ran into the same thing with electric.
It's a little bigger,
Trying to see where I could get more.
but then we would have to space all of you out 6 feet too. So in terms of space, yeah, it's not much difference.
Okay,
Yeah, because we did look at that.
Had that
There's some
conversation.
restrictions, because we actually talked about doing with our airport commission meeting too, if we could do it downstairs, but if we truly, because without the sheets, you have to be 6 feet apart, so you take everyone, move them 6 feet apart, and then move the chair 6 feet apart, it's not much difference than here.
It's 16 people total.
But then with the recording, that equipment is not portable. The, obviously the Polycom is portable, so, but it's,
We don't have microphones either.
that's true, there's no microphones down there also, so that's it. Commissioner Wessel or Rushton, anything you want to add?
Yeah, after our meeting, I was asked to reach out to Marshall Collins, B. Cruz, and Melissa Potosky, and they all have agreed to participate on November 5.
Good. And Commissioner Rushton, you were going to reach out to some individuals. I don't know if you've
I
done
did,
that.
and you know, we did have discussion about having more than one training, and this person's not available on that day, so I suggested that we shoot for a second meeting.
Good. So what we're hoping to do is have it November 5th, as we know, at 9 o'clock here. Dr. Emling will present for about 60 to 70 minutes, and we hope to have a panel discussion of local residents here with their perspective, and then question and answer, and hopefully be done by 11 o'clock. And Commissioner Wessel and Rush and I will probably follow up in the next week or so, finalize everything and get the full details out. But we're making progress. But like I said, there is great interest. And Diane Emily has expressed to me she's willing to come and do this again, or to other organizations.
Are you going to publicize the final exam scores from our reading of the textbook?
We'll have to see if that's foilable or not. So I don't know if there'll be a test or not. So.
Commissioner Ansar.
November 5th meeting a special meeting of the board? Or is it just a training session? You know, I'm trying to understand, you know.
It'll be posted as a study session. It's not a special board meeting. There's no action that you're going to take on it. So, but we will be in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. All right, next thing, as you know, we've had a lot of discussions about the HVAC project, so this time could Gary and Jerry come? Oh, they're both there. You can, we'll start. All right, I have to say, I was a Boy Scout one time, and I could not tell a lie. This is not why I asked them to be here. So, Mr. O'Connor, could you come forward, please? It is Mr. O'Connor's birthday. And as you know, Gary, we call him the Gary Llama, because this guy knows everything about anything in this building. And he is here on weekends. I know that for a fact. He's here at night. Anytime we have a question, he responds right away. And even with these remodeling projects, if you remember, a lot of times Kirsten would refer to Gary for advice. So I just want to say thank you for your, and I think we celebrated your birthday 2 years ago here too.
You did, in fact.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just a little pie.
Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you for all your efforts there.
I feel as though I'm a part of the fixture of this building. Yes. I've been here ever since it was a hole in the ground, and I'll still continue to plague you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, if you look back in history, 1980 was a very significant year. It was debates between Reagan and Carter. President Reagan won. Interest rates were 12 to 15% for home loans, if you can imagine that. The number one selling album of the year was Michael Jackson's Off the Wall. And a very historic event happened. Jerry Coleman started working at the county. Jerry, come forward. So 40 years at one location. There are two things Jerry loves. He loves Subway sandwiches.
Oh, my God.
So we got coupons for you.
Thank you.
You can't use county money to buy you sandwiches.
No, this is better than anything.
Mr. Bunnick, is it legal to give him coupons? Is that?
Absolutely.
And he loves chocolate
Give up
chip.
your paper.
Yes, yes, it came from my paper. And he loves chocolate chip
This
cookies.
way.
Two
Right here.
large chocolate chip cookies. Perfect, can't beat that. And Mr. Bunnick has something to say to you?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this is a certificate of recognition. On behalf of the citizens of Leelanau County, the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners is honored to present a certificate of recognition to Jerry Coleman II for his 40 years of service from 1980 to 2020 as a dedicated employee of Leelanau County.
Yeah, let's get to it. I got my picture here. We got a photo of this historic
Maybe
moment.
40 more.
Thank you.
No, we'll.
Stay over there, boss.
Get a picture of it.
You want to put it on, make it look right?
There you go.
Just go like this.
One more. Gary, you want to get in this picture too?
Yeah. Thank you.
Get on the other side. The three wise men here.
You want these masks on, or
Yeah.
be quiet? Here.
All right, ready?
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
It's safe to say there's never a dull moment with Jerry around.
Yeah.
If you want some entertainment, just ask him sometimes about his views on world affairs. So we actually been thinking about doing a Jerry podcast. I just asked Jerry a question, turn on the recorder, and he takes off for 5 minutes, so I thought we could broadcast those.
I think I'd rather have him sing.
Sing? Yes, that's true. That's true. He does have, as you all know, a great voice.
Thank you.
We also have a birthday girl here, Commissioner Sosa's little birthday, right? So the traditional cherry pie. Right there you go.
Thank you very much.
So there you go. Lots of things to celebrate this month.
Very much so.
Thank you so much.
All right, so then that would bring us then to emergency management update.
Matt, I'll put it on the screen here.
Okay.
Let's see. Time's out on me.
Good morning.
There we go.
So I figured I would
give you a brief update on my department. I'm before you quite often to discuss different topics and whatnot, but it's be a good opportunity to see what isn't at the forefront every month. So first and foremost would be my team on the next slide. We were lucky enough to keep everyone the same this year, so that was nice. We did have a military deployment from Julie Lautner, so we did have a temporary employee for a short while, but she has since found employment with Grand Traverse County 911, so we did good training her so that she could step off and do well for herself. So, just a basic overview of our annual call volume. 911 calls, you see the wireless and wireline calls. The wireless calls tend to grow every year, so we get a higher percentage of them as we progress forward. And I suspect that the VoIP calls will begin to grow more and more now that we have voice over internet protocol options for home phones. So we'll see that start to expand. And then you'll notice the, go ahead.
I'm surprised at the texting is so small.
Yes.
Is it because the community is not aware that that is a function that can be used on their cell phones to reach 911?
It could be some of that. The state is reporting over 75% of the counties in Michigan have text to 911 capability. So the ability of text to 911 is out there. It's probably as much to do with breaking habits with anything else. So when you think of 911, you're making a phone call, which is what we primarily want you to do anyway. It's much easier to get information from a conversation than it is from a text back and forth. Go ahead, Tom.
These numbers, and especially the high wireless ones, reminds me that we talked a year ago about our parks that are not connected and have no wireless. I still hope we can figure out how to address that.
Yeah, there are challenges with that. A lot of the solutions that we would have in place would either be a cellular option for a telephone pole, if you will, a call box, or it would require a landline telephone brought to that location, which would incur monthly fees and everything. So we are still exploring options for that. Yeah, that will be an ongoing discussion that we should have.
It seems like a critical need along the lake shore and people alone, and if you can't connect to 911, it's a serious issue.
Yeah, I agree. So you'll see that the Texty Outbound, that has been a great tool for our dispatchers. Whenever we get 911 hangups, we are much more likely to get a response if we text them back. There might be some kind of stigma, well, I didn't mean to call 911, you know, and they are much more likely to respond to a text than they are to a phone call. So we are very fortunate to have that ability. And we'll move on. This is just the next slide is a breakdown, a pie chart of how we receive phone calls as well. So you'll see the wireless is the major majority. Everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody seems to be their first and foremost choice when making phone calls, whether it's to 911 or whatnot. So just interesting to see in that perspective. And what's kind of interesting to look at would be our top 10 events within the county. We're still very good with our traffic stops. Deputies are out and about doing what they do best. We do a lot of medical calls, but you'll see the traffic stops are still far and above our number one. Suspicious, that's kind of a catch-all, whether it's a person, a vehicle, or an incident. You know, somebody calls something in and there's really not a category to put it in, we put it in as suspicious, and it's just easy to decipher it from there once the deputy's on scene. Alarm companies, a lot of those calls that come into us, we dispatch out to police, fire, and EMS. We do have alarm monitoring for what everybody believes at their house. It would be burglary alarms. There's fire alarms, and there's also medical alarms. So, whether it's a medical pendant or it's a fall detector that they have on their person, we get calls from all sorts of alarm companies. And what I like to look at every year is the car versus deer accidents. We seem to have a lot of them. Can't go a week without one, even in the summer. So seeing that on the top 10 is not surprising. So with the next slide, this year being affected by COVID kind of took some responsibilities away from my department. I didn't have quite as many pre-planned events that we had to plan for, do safety plans, meet with organizers in order to get first responders on the same page as the event organizers. But what's interesting to see would be the call volume that we received because of the COVID pandemic. And you'll see that from the graph below, there are peaks and valleys, as with just about anything. Our staff did an excellent job keeping cool. There was a lot of the same type of calls that came into dispatch. A lot of them revolved around these, which I don't suspect will stop anytime soon. So we'll see what happens within the last month or so. And we'll just keep addressing it as they come in. Any questions on this slide? It's more for visual pleasure than anything, really. So. Even with COVID, we were able to do our exercises, outreach, actions, and deploy to different events around the county. So shoreline erosion has been in the forefront around Michigan. Leelanau County being a peninsula, we have been impacted on all sides, basically. I did attend some town hall discussions revolving around that. Experts from the state and the federal government were there to discuss what homeowners could do in those situations. And unfortunately, erosion really doesn't classify as a disaster. So that's hard to wrap your head around, especially if you're a homeowner that's being impacted. So a lot of discussions with that. I was able to reach out to probationary teams in Benzie and Manistee County, discuss the importance of professionalism and, kind of get them more on the straight and narrow, if you will. They were very, very good discussions, believe it or not. They all had lots of different questions. I was able to give PowerPoint presentations, bits and pieces of what I do normally. I took some from the August 15th storm, 2015 storm, and even my department updates. And it was very well received, and it was good to see, especially that group of kids take such an interest in it. So I was very happy to do that. Security assessments. We did deploy, now before COVID really took place, we did have the Empire Snowmobile Drag Race at the end of February. So pretty cold outside still, and get to see all the cool snowmobiles take action and drag race up and down Empire Airport. So it's always a fun event for the community. I was able to instruct a emergency preparedness training for the Benzie Citizen Emergency Response Team just last month. They're a very well organized team. We do take advantage of them for some of our planned events, and they're very self-sufficient. So I'm more than happy to help out with their training whenever I'm asked. So it seems to be an annual thing, and I'm more than happy to do that. And I got to participate in EPA and Coast Guard joint spill response tabletop exercise. We did that through Microsoft Teams, and it actually was was pretty well, even though it was remote. A lot of the teams were able to interact with one another in groups and then as the entire group as a whole. So it was a very good experience. I didn't know very many people in the tabletop, so it was good to be able to at least virtually rub elbows with a lot of those individuals. And we continue our school safety and security meetings. We meet quarterly with all the superintendents and other decision makers within the schools. This year, we will be moving forward with our plans to test their reunification plans. That was our goal last spring. Unfortunately, COVID had a different objective for us. So we will be doing tabletop exercises with the schools this fall, beginning this month and next month, to test their plans for reunifying students in the event of an evacuation or any other emergency or disaster in the school. Yes.
Has, I know the sheriff's department put in placards for the different building identification. Have we had an opportunity to put that into practice since they've been put in place?
Yes. Whenever we do our drills and exercises, it's actually good to see that. So when we walk around with police, fire, and EMS during those exercises, they get to see it firsthand. We haven't had any organized response exercises from our side on that yet. Not all the schools had them in place very quickly, if you will. It was kind of frustrating and whatnot, but we're working toward that. And I know that Pathfinder will be one of our first schools that will be doing the tabletop exercises. And we will be sure to identify buildings that way when we talk about how we respond to an emergency and how we can coordinate parent pickup or transportation to an outside facility.
How can we encourage those schools that do not have those in place to get those in place?
The sheriff has been very proactive with reaching out to them. He does make a point to visit the schools quite often. And some of it boils down to different leadership taking over at the schools, and just a drop in communication, if you will. Now, Leland School doesn't have theirs up yet, but they're still under construction. So things like that are extenuating, but yeah, we're still doing our best to do as
The kids are in
much.
school right now, right?
Yes, they are. Yes.
Matt, you failed to mention the training that you've done for our staff.
Oh, I skipped over that.
Yeah.
And training and exercise. So yes, we were able to do some emergency response training for staff here at the courthouse. AED familiarization was part of that. And we will continue to do ongoing training. We do have, as part of the courthouse security meetings, we did develop flip charts that we gave to every employee. We will do ongoing training for those flip charts as well. And the board will be invited to all those trainings, and that will be an annual thing, so fun and exciting.
And I would like to compliment you on that, because I thought they were excellent handouts for everybody in this building.
Thank you.
Thank you for
I
that.
have to give Kelly most of the credit for that. He took that job and ran with it, so it was nice to be able to have him do all the heavy lifting. All right. Now what you all are excited to see, all the completes on that slide. So all the money that I've been coming before you and asking for, a lot of it is done. So we're happy for that. So the radio project is complete. Our transition to next gen 911 telephone equipment, that's complete. And we have completed our transition to a new CAD system as well. So the good thing about that, the text to 911 was included at no extra charge for us. Of course, we did spend the money for the next gen 911 equipment, but at least it wasn't an extra charge for us to incur. So.
And Matt, as I understand, because this was a huge project 4 years ago, very ambitious. We're hoping to have it done, all these done within 5 to 6 years, done within 4 years. And I believe we're still under budget from what we were originally.
We are. We were able to stay under budget on just about every project, really. So identifying what we need, what we can trim away. Because when you talk to salesmen and you talk to the engineers that install, there's a little difference in that. So we're able to be fiscally responsible with our decisions as well. So happy to report that.
I'm happy you're reporting that too. I know that we really pounded the table
I know.
on that for you. In what's not been said is that we were able to get those radios for all of the local fire departments too. We paid the vast majority, they pay a little bit, but we paid for those for our fire departments too. It's so we're great up to, we're state of the art right now.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And we can only get better from here. We do have the capability of being extremely state of the art. It's just how much we really want to do that. Whether we want to put GPS locations on all the radios and whatnot. Added expense, but it is a functionality piece that we could benefit from. So some discussions for the
Do we
future.
know what that cost would be?
I don't. They're ballpark. I don't even think I can ballpark because they have been very. It's a developing technology, and actually, it's been implemented in different parts of the country. But unfortunately, with Michigan, the way that the state operates their radio system, it doesn't integrate well at this point. So they still have quite a bit of work to do with that. So I could not ballpark it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know we looked at the big dam, but we have little dams around the county. Are we also gonna look at those and have plans for the, any of those that may have downstream impact if they fail?
We do have plans in place for the Muhlenberg Dam and the dam that's right at Dr. Shaw's house. So there are plans in place for that. It's more of a responsibility of the upkeep of those dams, whether it's the homeowner or the community, to make sure that especially the Muhlenberg Dam, it's an earthen dam. So if there is erosion that wears away that berm, that's when we could get some real problems going. That falls out of my purview, maybe probably more so with soil and erosion, but we do work together with those plans.
Yeah, I didn't know if we had, I know you looked at the Leland Dam as far as the downstream impact.
Right.
But I don't know if we review those downstream smaller dams, and, some of those actually may have more people involved than Leland. There's a very short span in Leland, whereas, Lynn Lake, if it starts draining, you might have a lot of people impacted.
True.
So,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that, we don't want to be caught blindsided just because we didn't look at some of these smaller dams.
Do we know how much water is on the other side of that Muhlenberg Dam?
A lot more than I expected. The water level is up quite a bit. It looks like a small lake right now. I don't know how much water is in it.
So if that dam should go, what's the impact?
We would probably have a lot of basements that were flooded, working downstream all the way to the bay. So a lot of the houses along Avondale and Cherry Bend Road, whether it takes a jaunt to Cedar Lake or if it goes all the way to the bay, that'll be kind of the unknown.
So I guess my question is the creeks that handle that water from the Muhlenberg Lake, is that something that the road commission is in charge of maintaining?
It's not. It'll be the homeowners association that handle, and I forget if it's one of the homeowners right there at the Muhlenberg Dam, but they take responsibility for maintenance and upkeep of that. So it would fall on them to make sure that there's no obstructions to letting the water out.
And from there to Cedar Lake, what you're saying is it's the individual homeowner that is responsible to make sure that those creeks are running appropriately if that dam were to let loose.
Well, it would be more the homeowners association that is responsible for the Muhlenberg Dam. I don't have the plan in front of me. I would be able to tell you the proper term. But whoever's responsible for upkeeping that facility, they would have the responsibility. Now, the homeowners, since it's water that's coming from the outside, really only flood insurance is gonna help them. And not very many people are gonna have flood insurance.
Well, I know for myself, I've seen a lot of problems coming down that creek. And it tends to follow the old creek bed, goes across the road and then down to Cedar Lake, which floods out all those homes along Cherry Bend Road. So, well, you guys, I'm sure, have gotten phone calls this last year.
A few.
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
And a couple years ago.
and
Yeah,
even-
It's been an ongoing problem.
Even this summer, we did make sandbags available to those residents as well.
Now, the other question I think that has been raised is the size of the culvert that's underneath Cherry Bend Road that feeds, there's two creeks that come in there and then go on down to the lake. So has anybody addressed the size of those culverts?
That would be more along the lines of the road commission, where they would be able to do that. Now,
Has
what,
there been discussion about that?
to my knowledge, yes, there has been. What is also a circumstance with all that would be culverts that are underneath the driveways for all the residences. That is the homeowner's responsibility. The road commission is not gonna touch those. So we all know that homeowners do tend to throw their grass clippings in the ditch, and slowly those ditches start to build up. And that's a detriment for water runoff.
I think that's been a practice ongoing.
Yes.
Where they will continue to throw their leaves in the culverts, and then eventually that turns into soil. They plant the grass, and there are no longer culverts.
Very true.
Commissioner Ansel.
The drain commissioner also has a role in this, and he has, I know for a fact, because he called me, that, you know, he has been involved with looking at that situation, you know, because drainage is part of his job to make sure that the water flows where it's supposed to flow. So, you know, we could ask him, and, you know, he's really probably got a better handle on that down there. Because, you know, the sandbags and stuff, you know, he was heavily involved with that.
Well, thank you. I didn't mean to get
No,
off on
that's
this
fine.
whole discussion, but it's a good point. Citizens out there are very concerned about this water flow in different areas.
Any other questions? Anything else, Matt?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice job. Thank you.
And that brings us to Michigan Court Administrator of the Year Award.
Yeah, originally I was hoping to have Carol Stockton here so we can honor her on her statewide award, but there was a court case that came up this morning. So it takes probably priority over this, but she will be here next Tuesday evening, and several judges may come with her also, so they want to honor her also. So this will be on the agenda as a presentation next Tuesday evening.
All right. So then we have the approval of agenda. I don't have any late additions or deletions. Commissioner Rush.
I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support. Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. So we now have an agenda. That brings us to a public comment. And if you're out listening in the public, the number to call is 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109. If there's anyone here who would like to speak, they can come forward. Please come forward.
Good morning. I thought it might be a good idea for me to come and introduce myself because I'm in a bit of a unique situation. I am a candidate. I'm Garth Greenan from 13500 South Partridge Run Road. That's in Solon Township. And I am a candidate for road commission for the upcoming position on the road commission. But I also have submitted a letter of interest to the board for appointment to the road commission, should I not get elected. And I just wanted to let you know that if the people of Leelanau County decide they want me to represent them, I'd be glad to do that. If not, I am interested in the potential appointment to the board by the county board. Just a little bit about me. I'm a Glen Lake High School graduate. I went to Michigan Tech and got a degree in civil engineering. And I am a professional engineer, and I've worked in the profession for a lot of years, nearly 40 years. And my background, my most recent position was with Grand Traverse County Road Commission, where I supervised people and was responsible for traffic services, which includes safety and permits and developing policies for the commission. And before that, I had a consulting company that I owned and operated that did engineering consulting. And I have submitted my resume, so you can all see the details of my background, but I thought it might be a good idea so you could put a face with a name and come in and introduce myself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on then to our action items. First up is emergency management.
Back again. Okay.
Before you get started, Matt, I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to allow the chairman of the board to sign the fiscal year 2020 EMPG work agreement and other documents related to this grant agreement, and to allow the Office of Emergency Management to submit electronic signatures for the required quarterly reports.
Second.
Any questions for me? Did you want to say anything about it?
It's a pretty straightforward. We've been doing it a long time now. There is a House bill that's being presented by Jack O'Malley that may change the structure of emergency management statewide at the state level. So we'll see how that progresses, but it may require some further explanation next year. We'll see.
Do you know how that would affect?
Basically, what it'll do is it'll take the state police out of emergency management. It'll make it a civilian department. It'll be the smallest department in the state. Theoretically, it will free up more money to be able to be distributed to the local programs. So hopefully the percentage that we receive in the contribution would be greater, but we'll see how it progresses.
Thank you for that.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. And that brings us to a government center tower update.
So not a whole lot to report right now. We're still waiting back on the tower assessment from Swagger in order to see the feasibility of beefing up the existing tower. I'm hoping that we'll be able to have that information back and give a recommendation to the board at next week's meeting. So not a whole lot to report, but if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions?
Fancy to hear.
No, me too.
So I assume you just want to move this to next week's meeting?
Yeah. She has something by then.
We'll put it on the agenda. If we don't,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has any problem.
Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think so.
no, we're just going to move it. If there's no opposition, I'll just move it next week.
All right, and then we have the update for the potential contract with Agri Valley.
Agri Valley's been making a big push to get an agreement done for the tower sites. They would like to go on 3 different towers. Now, the good thing about Agri Valley is they do have the capability of servicing a large number of citizens from one site. So having them on the Maple City, the Central Tower, and the Omena Tower site would be a huge benefit to the citizens of Leelanau County.
Central, Okina,
And Maple City.
and Maple City.
Yeah. Now, they deal in licensed spectrum, so they won't be near as concerned about interference as other internet service providers. And we do have at least one more internet service provider that's going to be moving to licensed spectrum. So that is excellent news for the county, because interference is always going to be kind of an issue with that. But dealing with Agri Valley, they're moving very quickly. We are down to one of the sections that we just need to iron out the language, and I'm confident we'll have that by the end of the week, so I can give you a full EDS and a copy of the lease to look over for next week.
Commissioner Solisler.
I just wanted to make a motion to move this forward to next week, so recommend to the Board of Commissioners that we move the Agri Valley contract forward to next week's regular meeting.
Or
Commissioner Rush.
Explain to me what you mean by license spectrum. I'm not clear on that.
Yeah,
term.
basically how they transmit their internet signal, nobody else can be on that same transmission.
Okay.
Yeah, so they actually own that that transmission line, if you the radio frequency. So if you think of you're tuning your radio to,
Whatever radio
station, they would own that radio station.
Just like you own your emergency station.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you say licensed spectrum, is it through Spectrum?
No. Spectrum is just the radio frequency. That's
Generic,
just the term.
okay.
Yes.
That's what gave me the confusion. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Solisler.
I just wanted to comment, I know this has been a lot of work for Matt and for Ray LePayne, the CEO for Agri Valley, but it's going to make a huge difference in terms of having, people are so hungry and desperate right now for fixed wireless, high-speed internet, and this will really help our schools, help our citizens that are trying to work from home, so thank you so much, Matt, for this.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward to next week. Hopefully we'll see a contract.
Yeah.
If you get it as soon as you can,
Absolutely.
because we would like to review it before we vote.
It's not a short document either, so yes, definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us then to equalization, approval of Leelanau County apportionment report, L 4402.
Again, statute requires the County Board of Commissioners to meet an apportionment session prior to October 31st every year. The submission of this report is due annually on November 30th. I've talked about that before, and that's because even though apportionment has to be done in October, you still can add a millage to accommodate November elections. We do have a millage request for the approval of the Recreational Authority millage in the city of Traverse City. That would begin in 2020 if it's approved, so we may have to revisit this report again in November. But we'll go through the report and do the statutory duty today that is required. The cover is a map of the top 10 owners by acreage in the county with the United States National Park Service at 45,007 acres and 242 parcels as the largest landowner by acreage in the county, and also why impact aid is so important to our schools. The next is the index, and I will refer to the tabs on the index as I go through the report so you can keep track of where I am. Tab 1 is my letter to the board outlining the County Board of Commissioners' statutory responsibilities regarding apportionment. The main section of the law is included. If the board has any questions regarding the apportionment report, they are directed by law to refer them to the prosecuting attorney for his opinion or corporate counsel. Tab 2 is the top 10 owners in the county ranked by taxable value that I give to bonding agencies. It lists the top 10 owners with the number of parcels, the product or service they offer, the 2020 taxable value of, the percent of taxable value that each owner represents to the whole. The top 10 taxpayers currently provide 2.64% of the total 2020 taxable value. This is up from 2.48% last year. If you look at it again, though, this analysis still shows that the county's large taxpayers are stable and yet diverse. 9 on this list were on last year's list, only changing positions up and down. Reith Riley Construction dropped off and Glen Arbor Property LLC came on. The county's broad tax base results in minimal dependence on large taxpayers. If you look at bond ratings, which are really important if there is a bond, they rate those bonds to indicate the credit quality. In private independent rating services like Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch provide these evaluations of a bond issuer's financial strength, their ability to pay a bond's principal and interest in a timely fashion. So I'm always getting these requests before we really are ever finished with our taxable value numbers because it's really critical from a bonding standpoint. Tab 3 contains some miscellaneous statistics, I call it, my top 5 reports. The first one is the top, are you able to follow me all right?
Yeah, am I correct here?
Yeah. The first is the top 10 SEVs by an individual parcel with Celebrate Life Trust is number 1. The second is the top 10 taxable values by individual parcel with Celebrate Life Trust is number 1. The third is the top 10 owners by SEV value. This report considers all of their parcels. Consumers Energy Company with 33 parcels is number 1. The fourth is the top 10 owners by taxable value with all parcels that they own. Number 1 is Consumers Energy Company. The fifth report is the top 10 owners by acreage, and this was the map on the front of the cover with the United States National Park Service is number 1. The next one is a map of Leelanau County, and I put this up merely to show you that Leelanau County is the smallest county in the state of Michigan, but it does have very valuable waterfront property. Benzie County is the smallest, actually.
So, if I may, if you back up one, in fact, it's going to go back to your cover. So the National Parks is the largest land owner in Leelanau County, but don't show up in your list of the largest taxpayers.
Because they don't pay.
They don't pay taxes.
No.
Point I wanted to make, thank you, Ms. Karen, sorry. But we get little stipend with PILT money.
Oh, the schools get the impact aid.
Yeah. Okay.
Tab 4 is the top 10 owners by taxable value by township. Bingham Township, number 1, Black Star Farms LLC. Centerville Township, number 1, Lake Leelanau Family Campgrounds. Cleveland Township, Sweetbread LLC, number 1. Elmwood Township, Cedar Creek Commons Incorporated, number 1. Empire Township, Consumers Energy Company, number 1. Glen Arbor Township, Bayberry Group Incorporated, number 1. Hassan Township, Reith Riley Construction Company Incorporated, number 1. Leelanau Township, Consumers Energy Company, number 1. Leland Township, Celebrate Life Trust, number 1. Solon Township, Cherryland Rural Electric, number 1. Sutton's Bay Township, Cherry Bay Orchards, number 1. Tab 5 is the city of Traverse City. There, Tom's Food Market is number 1. Tab 6 are the villages in the county. The Village of Empire Storm Hill Cottage Trust is number 1. Village of Northport, LS Marina Northport LLC is number 1. The Village of Suttons Bay, Bailey Enterprise Incorporated is number 1. Tab 7 is our schools. Glen Lake Community, Consumers Energy is number 1. Leland Public Schools, Celebrate Life Trust, number 1. Northport Public Consumers Energy Company, number 1. Suttons Bay Public Consumers Energy, number 1.
If you were to back up, the Celebrate Life continues to come up, and you'll notice that that's one parcel, and that's a taxable value at 11 million.
Yes. And an important note that, and Chet knows or understands this a little better than I do, especially for Leland Public Schools, they're teetering on whether they're an in formula or out of formula. And so a decision here, and this is under appeal, and I don't know quite where they are. I think they're close to probably a stipulation, but I couldn't speak for them. But that's where it becomes critical for like the school district as to what happens there, because obviously they are a large taxpayer, and
it would have a dramatic impact on Leland Public Schools, no matter which way they proceed.
So it is important that you bring that up, because that is under appeal right now. Tab 8 shows the taxable value for Leelanau County since Proposal A passed in 1994. And obviously taxable value was a new term. It used to be our state equalized value was our taxable value, and now we have 2 different numbers that run in the roll. Tab 9 shows the 2020 revenue sources by property classification. Real, residential is the largest real class at 91.21% of the real class. Tab 10 shows the 2020 revenue sources by property classification. Personal. Here, utility personal is the largest class at 67.77% of the value of the personal class. Tab 11 puts all of the classes together, both real and personal, and residential is still the largest at 89.29% of the value. Tab 12 is a map of the top 10 owners by taxable value. It shows where they're located in the county. A couple of the owners are personal property and couldn't be mapped: DTE Energy and Cherryland Rural Electric. Tab 13 is our miscellaneous tab. In this, I consider this one of our most important tabs because it gives you an idea of the exempt class that we have in the county. Over 27% of our land is off the tax rolls.
Over
7%.
The 27% of our county is off the tax rolls. Federal land, state land, county
churches,
land,
you know, if you look through, I've indicated in your report a list of all of the exempt properties. So there, it just kind of gives you an idea of what we have. And the reason I kind of want to bring this up a little bit, if you look on the one page I have, in Michigan, the law is clear: all property, real and personal, within the jurisdiction of this state not expressly exempted shall be subject to taxation. And court cases have clearly said that exemptions are never presumed. The burden is also on the claimant to establish clearly his right to an exemption. And the one area that's always under contention in Michigan, and you'll see it at Michigan tax tribunals, is the nonprofit status. But that federal exemption does not in and of itself qualify an organization for property tax exemptions, although you'll see a lot of nonprofits say they should be exempt for taxes. It isn't necessarily true. They have to meet other guidelines. But the reason I'm bringing it up is there's a change in the State Tax Commission adopted what they call CAMA data standards, which are computer-assisted mass appraisal standards. And in that standard, in our county and in some other counties, they had a class called exempt. And there's no exempt class. There's an exemption for property taxes. And so what they want those units to do is to indicate the exemption that they're exempt under. And they're supposed to have a policy. If you look on the next page, the audit of minimum assessing requirements has a question. Does the local unit have written procedures, including audit procedures, for determining how to grant real property exemptions or remove real property exemptions when the property no longer qualifies for the exemption, yes or no? So again, if they're following this procedure and have some sort of document and ask the question of those exempt people, they should be responding by what law they're exempt under, and then you can review the law to see if they're meeting the exemption.
So, if I may, I was asked the other day, again, occasionally this question comes up, and that's the Leelanau Conservancy. Do you know right offhand how much property that they have off the tax roll?
It's in here because you'll see them under Conservancy.
3,000 some acres.
So they have 3,000 some acres, and I couldn't answer this question, and I meant to call you on it. But so how do they fall under tax exempt? Because they're a nonprofit, but what else then?
There was a ruling for conservancies that allowed them to get the exemption. I don't have that law right in front of me.
So it was a law that just the state said, okay, if you do this, we'll allow you.
And even from the standpoint of, and you got to kind of keep track of these because the exemptions keep coming. But it used to be when there was a transfer, there was an uncapping, and if it has a conservation easement, it doesn't uncap. So there are a lot of things that impact taxes that we're trying to keep track of. But I think everybody needs to understand, what it means ultimately. But the other thing that we have to do is we provide to the state the county tax credit deduction and exemption estimation request. And we use this report that you see in here to help us do that. So we classify what they're asking in terms of a question, how much of your property would be churches, how much of your property are schools. And to do that, we have to identify, which ones are which, so that we can somewhat give them an accurate estimate, which is why this report is in there for you.
That the Leelanau Conservancy is right on the front page, top owners of the acreage.
Oh, it's got the actual.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 3,300 acres. Okay.
Commissioner Silverstein.
Lori, what you just, the statement you just made about identifying the portion of the churches and that are used for schools versus for worship. I'm seeing on the page here where you're identifying exemption, some of it where churches says taxable. Is that what that's referring to?
Well, that's actually an error on the part of the assessors, and one of the things that they're asking them to clean up, it should say exempt.
Okay.
I was interested in section 13, where it says the principal residence of persons in poverty, exemption from taxation. So, I think it's 204, I think, it's on the bottom. But, so there's a section in the tax exemption for people in poverty, on their homes or?
Yes, what they do, every year the federal government comes out from guidelines as to what qualifies an individual is qualifying for poverty. And they would have to demonstrate to the Board of Review that they meet those guidelines. And if they do, then they're exempt.
So then do they get the credit? They pay the tax and get the credit back? They get a credit from the, I suppose you don't know how the taxes work.
Well, they would just not pay the taxes. They would
They would have the exemption.
or Board of Review has the option of granting a partial exemption as well.
Okay. That's it.
Threshold's very,
Very low. Yeah.
yes.
Behind the list, I provided an example of an application for a property tax exemption. And again, local units would have to develop their own, but they should have something where the applicant is telling them what section of the Michigan General Property Tax Law they are requesting an exemption under.
Laura? I'm just looking at these cemeteries, some are taxable and some are exempt. How
Well,
can that be?
Well, again, that's an error on the database on the part of the assessor, and that will be cleaned up under the new CAMA data standards. It'll show up as an error, and they wouldn't have it.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's like,
There's only two, under the new CAMA data standards, there's only two taxable status, one's exempt and one's taxable. So if they're exempt, they should be exempt. And I know it'll show up in the database as an error until it's corrected. So I'm sure we're gonna, hopefully next year, you're gonna see a lot of this cleaned up.
is that part of your job to make sure the township assessors do that?
I try to, but their database will hound them if they don't. Because it'll come up as an error all the time on their database until it gets corrected. Tab 14 is the tab which shows where Leelanau County ranks in terms of taxable value. I skipped a few, I'm sorry. These are the pages that I was talking about where we've attempted, and I think you're looking at them, where we've attempted to identify where they are. But this Leelanau County stood at 27th last year as well. What is sort of interesting, if Chet goes to the next slide, I looked at this year. I've always looked at where we stood in terms of the 83 counties just overall. But this year, I looked to see where we stood in terms of classes. So agricultural, we're 40th, commercial, we're 36th, industrial, 68th, residential, 19th, and personal, 65th. So if you're interested at all, that's where we stand with just individual type classes. I had never really looked at that before, but I found it interesting. The next tab is...
All right, what tab 14 is showing the relationship of Leelanau to other counties based on
taxable value. Tab 15 is the...
I have a
Sure.
question, and I probably should know this, but when the Conservancy properties in general are tax exempt, but when the Conservancy buys or inherits the development rights on a piece of property, taxes are still paid.
Correct.
But they're reduced.
It's still market value. Now, the argument with people that have conservation easements is they've lost value. I just looked at one, though, that we had this year on an agricultural parcel, and I examined the value prior to the sale to the Conservancy, after the sale to the Conservancy, and then again, and it went up every time. So to me, that argument doesn't always hold true. It should still be market value. If the market is indicating, in some conservation easements don't allow them development on the property. And so in those instances, they probably have lost some value, but there are people that want to buy those properties and they advertise them. In fact, this one was advertised as protected. And some people like to buy protected property, so they haven't really lost value. So there's arguments both ways.
Thank you.
Tab 15 is the official apportionment report. My certification statement for the report is the first one. The page 2 would be the units and their taxable value and revenue. Page 3 are the authorities. Page 4 are the schools in the county. Page 5 is the intermediate school information. Page 6 is homestead, non-homestead property tax rates by unit. Page 7 is qualifying special assessment millage. So that is the report actually that we're going to hopefully approve today for the October apportionment session. And like I indicated, if the millage does not pass, this report will go to the state as it is. If it does pass, I will be back for that revision in November. And once that's final, I will post this on our website. Are there any other questions regarding the apportionment report?
Are we in pretty good shape for homestead, non-homestead? Are you feeling like we've, a few years ago, you talked to us about there being some gaps and where we were? Have we made progress?
I think so. It's a difficult area of the role to monitor because, again, it continues to evolve and they continue to grant, I don't know what you want to call it, leniency or, for instance, an LLC, you couldn't qualify for a homestead if you were an LLC. Well, now if you have 1% in the rest is LLC, I mean, there just have been continual changes, so it's very difficult to monitor is all I can say.
We have a motion. H18.
I move to recommend that we approve the county apportionment report L4402 in our board meeting next week.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Very nice report. All right, that brings us into the planning community development. Morning, Trudy.
Morning. I have two items for you this morning. The first one is just an update for you. We are closing out our last housing rehabilitation grant. So we have no more grants of this kind that the state is going to be issuing. They have changed their programs and they're encouraging more of new construction and rental development. So unless they listen to counties who are encouraging them to continue with the rehab program, we won't be seeing any more of these grants in the future. So the grant has been extended from September 30th of this year to the end of this year, and that allows us to finish up our paperwork, draw down any remaining grant funds, and then close out our projects. We received just over $100,000 with this grant, and we did 5 projects. They ranged from about $13,000 to $26,000 each. We also have program income funds, which are funds that come from the repayment of loans that we have out there, and we were able to do some what we call emergency projects with those, like a new furnace or a new septic system. And we will be able to use those going forward, but without the grant funds, we're pretty limited. So I have some ideas on that, and I'd like to put together some suggestions and then bring that back to you next year, have a little discussion and see what you'd like to do moving forward. But at this time, there's no action or anything, just an update for you on this housing grant. And then the second item is the EPA grant application. In June, I came before you and requested support to move forward with the grant application. These are very competitive grants. They're tough to write. We didn't want to get involved in doing that if you were not supportive of it. You did offer support. At this time, I don't have the actual grant application. I will have a summary report for you for next week and then going forward for your regular board meeting. So we're putting together that grant. I'm working with one of our consultants, and then the Brownfield Authority will take a look at that as well. So in the past, what we've done with these dollars is with approved brownfield plans and state grant loan money, we did 4 projects. We used EPA revolving loan funds to clean up and redevelop a site. That's the former government site in Leland. And then with assessment dollars, we did 35 projects. Of those, we have 16 that ended up being resold for development, 5 that were demo projects, 5 that had cleanup activities on site, and 1 that was developed for a community park. And then the others have no development occurring at this time. Some of them are up for sale. Some of them are just in a hold pattern. So today what I'm asking for is that you move this EPA grant application forward to your full board meeting so that it would be on there for discussion and hopefully you approve submittal. There are no matching funds for that. We just need to get it to EPA, and if we were awarded funds, we would bring that grant grant award back to you for acceptance.
I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to place the EPA assessment grant application on the October 13th agenda for consideration, to submit by deadline of October 28th.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Yes.
I didn't get a chance to ask.
Go ahead.
On the rehab, did we get any of the COVID rehab money for the county?
No, I've talked with Chet about that, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do it for housing, but
No, we did check that, that's not,
yeah.
Yeah, I know community action agency, just like their CDBG money, they got some.
Yes.
You got quite a bit. I didn't know if we were successful or not.
No, we didn't get
the
it.
grant that we were awarded, and it's later on the agenda, is the community development block grant, and we specifically asked about housing, and they said no.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner West.
Thank you for continuing to work on the grant ideas. As you know, we talked about a family this week that they were living in downtown Northport, no heat. Senior Services was able to help some. The churches were able to help some. The Lions Club was able to help some. But we do need some emergency provisions for people that are really struggling with major repairs.
Yeah, we see a lot of those in the county. So I'll come back with some ideas for you next year.
Yeah, and I guess one thing, that's what I was wondering about. You're using the interest off of, or, the repayments. You're able to use that for those types of emergency situations?
Yes, and there are some stipulations through the state on how we can use those. So when I come back to you and lay out some suggestions, I'll go over those so that you understand those.
Okay, and then, but I guess what I'm wondering, can the county set up part of the housing thing? Because I hate to see this repairs and that go away. Because I know it really, some people I've known, it's really helped them with windows, with doors, with, insulation. And I, somehow I'd like to see us continue that if this grant goes away.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure how we would do it, but yes, Commissioner Lott.
And we're not the only organization, that does it. Obviously, there's others. There's the Freedom Builders, I believe it is, that does same type of thing. And they're in partnership with Cherryline Electric, and they try to do those, the whole envelope type thing.
I was thinking 2%, you give 2% grant or some things like that to help them.
Sure.
It'd be really, I wish we could continue, but I hope we can.
Okay, I'll work on that. Okay, thank you.
All right, so thank you very much.
Just speaking about 2%, just to, got me thinking, in today's Record Eagles, there's a story that Commissioner Wessel reported this morning. It says 2% cases are due October 30th. It's incorrect. It's the end of November. So if you see that, it's not accurate. So we'll have, I'm sure we'll have some 2% applications at the November board meeting. But if you saw the article and saw the deadline date, I didn't want you to panic.
All right, that brings us to information technology.
Good morning. What I have here is a request to renew our DLT Solutions backup and recovery software. Price of it is $2097.11. Had plenty of money in the budget for it. Prices, we had budgeted to include 3 additional servers, the 911 servers, but those are currently being backed up by a different product called Veeam, which was provided by the 911. So that's why the budget amount appears to be a little bit higher than it needed to be. So, but that'll give us another year on our backup solution. Any questions?
Commissioner Wessel.
I move to recommend that the County Board of Commissioners approve renewing the maintenance agreement with DLT Solutions for rapid recovery backup software in the amount of $2,097.11. Funds to come from data processing fund number 636.
Second.
Commissioner Lott.
Thank you. Ron, we recently had another issue with our computers that.
We did. We had a hardware failure on one of our servers. Yep.
Was everything backed up, or?
Yes, everything was backed up. We were able to use this software actually to restore the accounting system to another server and get it back up. It took about a 2-hour process to get the accounting back up and running.
It was all backed up.
It was all backed up, right, and to the cloud, so.
What failed?
It was a board within the server. The story was, okay, Saturday, I was up in the UP in my campsite, and I got a call from Safety Net that the jail had notified them that the server, they were not able to get into their software. They came in and looked at it, and the server had no power. Okay, so it was just no power. They couldn't get it to come on. So typically what that would be a power supply in the server or a motherboard. So what they did is they, again, talking through Dell, it was under warranty. Dell said, okay, we will ship overnight, business day overnight. Okay, so it was a Saturday. They couldn't put the dispatch in until Monday. Okay, so they put the dispatch in on Monday to be delivered next business day, which was Tuesday, and the technician didn't arrive here until 6 o'clock Tuesday night. So it was kind of a fiasco on Dell's part, is what I basically put it down to. They should have been here earlier, you know. They got here, they replaced the power supply, didn't work. They replaced the motherboard, that didn't work. So now here it is 8 o'clock at night. They say, well, there's a daughter board that goes between the motherboard and the power supply. They didn't send that. We think that's what it is. Okay, so here we are now on Tuesday night. They can't dispatch until Wednesday to be delivered on Thursday. So Thursday, that board comes in, and guess what? That didn't work either. Okay, what they found then Thursday night was there's a board that goes between the hard drives in the motherboard that evidently had shorted out. When they unplugged that, the computer tried to start up. At least it got power. They said, okay, so that's the board that goes wrong. They've never, this technician for Dell had never seen that board fail. Okay, so it was kind of an odd thing that happened. Okay.
Never say never.
So yeah, never say never, exactly. So they had that one overnighted. I'm not quite sure how they did get it, but we did get it. No, I'm sorry, that was Thursday night. So Friday, they shipped it. We got it Monday morning, put it in, boom, server came back up, everything was fine. But in the meantime, I had moved the accounting system over to another server and got it up and running so that we could do payroll and accounting.
How was the jail then?
It was the commissary. They have procedures. They can do things by hand.
Oh.
You know, so it wasn't really a critical,
Okay.
you know, thing.
So I'm counting like 10 days then, that they were without their software over there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did I had Safety Net come up with look at a plan to, you know, say, okay, if we don't ever want to have this happen again. Okay, so if we were to try to come up with a system that would be fail-safe, the solution that they came up with, which I agree with, is what's called a SAN, a storage device that all your servers plug into, okay? So that if one of the servers goes down, you can use another server, the data is already still loaded on the storage device. Again, everything comes down to the price. Maybe about $70,000 to put that up, okay? Another solution would be to go to the cloud and put our servers in the cloud. And that again would be about an $8,000 a month charge to put our servers in the cloud, plus the setup costs involved. So, you know, I think probably one of the things we could do would be to have a spare server here, you know, that is really just not being used, because that was one of the issues we had, is we didn't have a spare server that we could totally bring all the systems up on. We had a server that we could move some of the applications to, the critical ones, and get them up and running. You know, that we used our GIS server to actually move the data for the accounting system and get it up and running. So, you know, something like that would be maybe a $20,000 bill, you know, which is not quite as bad as I think an $80,000. And again, the storage device, that's subject to failure too. You know, it's like, well, they don't ever fail. They very seldom fail. Yeah, but they do, you know, it's hardware. It does fail. So.
Why do they always fail when you're gone? That's what
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know.
I am getting a legal opinion. I don't know if the board has to take action. What I can do is that we're going to just eliminate all vacation time.
Yeah.
Or you stay within a 10-mile radius.
This is deer season. Come on.
So I'll put it on the November agenda to get that taken care of.
Yeah.
Is there there's been some discussion about our email being converted to a different
Yes,
program.
yes.
Do we have any information on that today?
I don't have a physical cutover date, but the system is up and running. Our plan, it'll probably be in November when that gets cut over. The old email will still work, so if somebody sends something to co.leelanau.mius, it'll still come into your mailbox just like it does today. When you respond out, it'll convert it to leelanau.gov. Okay, so people will get your new email, but as long as we maintain that domain, the co.leelanau.mius, which is, pay $30 a month or whatever for that, we can have it forever. So.
I find sometimes that the existing account we're using is a little slow.
Yeah, the rack space. Yeah. We're converting to Microsoft Office 365, okay, which has a few other collaborative packages that we could probably use.
But just Leelanau.gov is so much easier for people to.
It is, yeah.
Understand and pass out.
They made I was denied it at first because what it was supposed to be would be leelanau.co.gov as a county. But the person said, well, I said, they do make exceptions every once in a while. So I sent in a request for an exception. I said, Leelanau is very unique. I says, you won't find another one in the country. And the guy called me back about 2 hours later, says, you're right. He says, I Googled everything I could find and you're the only one. So there you go. So I think we got a good name there, so.
I'd be interested, maybe in November, to get an update on how we're doing with our security training and staff training and board member training. I haven't been caught in a long time.
Yeah, no, that's really, nobody's been caught in quite a while. So I think we're doing really well with that. We have some people who haven't finished their follow-up training programs. I did send out a new one. You probably all got it. It was kind of a newer version of the last one you took, so we do that about once a year. The people, they're really good. They're actually have a phone call with the gal. She will call us about every 2 months and say, okay, here's the new trainings that we have. Can I get on with you and set them up for you? And so it's a great outfit that we're working with there. And really the violations, I haven't had one in about 3 months where people set them up, so.
We've got everybody paranoid.
That's exactly right.
Things we probably should be doing.
Yeah. I still have a few people that will forward them to me, and I'm like, no, don't forward them. That's propagating it again, so.
But it's very simple. Just, if you think it's suspicious, just check on Fish Alert. If it's not, they'll tell you.
Yeah, so they don't have Fish Alert. You only have Fish Alert if you're using Outlook. Yeah, so on your laptops or your iPads, you don't have what we call Fish Alert. So you fish an email, it'll tell you whether it was something that was sent by our internal training or if it was something that maybe, maybe bad, so.
So every employee on their computer has the option of simply clicking Fish Alert and it lets you know whether it's an email that's legitimate or not.
Yeah,
so it really
you don't.
is helpful.
So we tend to not open anything we don't recognize.
Right. You're less susceptible, you're not connected to our network. So if for some reason that was a virus that wiped out your iPad, we just rebuild it. You're not connected to our network to where it's going to affect anybody else. So that's why we have you connected to the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is physically not connected to our network.
One thing I want to say is that probably we don't, with Ron's here, we don't notice if there's something goes down.
That's true.
It's when he's gone that we really notice what happens.
Yeah.
Which goes back to my point about it not being gone.
Okay.
Ron, could you just I gave one an update about the Spectrum.
Oh, our 100 megabit? Yeah, we did get our internet service, not the wireless. The wireless is going through AT&T circuit that we got with our phone system. But Spectrum, during the COVID pandemic, upgraded our service to 100 megabit, basically free of charge. Same price we were paying for 20 megabit, up and down. So I think with our Zoom meetings, I think things have been a lot smoother. I've been doing speed checks and we are definitely getting 100 megabit service from them. So I kind of appreciate that. We still will probably be going out for bids to look at our internet service. Once the Grand Traverse Band has their fiber activated here, we'll have some other options. Right now, we're limited to AT&T and Spectrum. But once we get the charter fiber, or excuse me, the tribal fiber, there'll be other options that we could look at. So we'll probably do go out for bids on internet service and also backup internet service, so.
For a motion?
You have a motion, you just
We
need a
do have it,
vote.
all right? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0. Thanks, Ron. So then that brings us then to the dam authority. We have a contract or?
I don't think anyone's here, but it's simple renewal of their AT&T.
Okay, phone.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wessel?
I had a question on the proposal. The 60, this is, I mean, it's not a big deal, I guess, but $65 per month sounds like a lot for a landline. Don't we have Spectrum services there? And if we do, they have landlines for $30 a month.
Those are voice over internet, though, they're not really landlines. And they do fail.
Do they fail?
Yeah, if power goes out, you can't use them.
That's not the reason.
Okay.
The reason the dam wants it is because they want the landline is because they have a dedicated IP address. That's why they have that.
Okay, then I have a motion.
I have one more question. Do we have one line there or two lines there?
I think there's only one, I don't know.
Because it talks about $65 per line.
That's what the renewal statement said. It's like a generic offering to anyone.
So they have one line?
Yes.
One line.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wessel?
I move to recommend that the County Board of Commissioners approve renewing the agreement with AT&T for business local calling unlimited Plan B on behalf of the Leland Dam Authority for the landline located in the Leland Dam Control Room at a 12-month term rate of $65 per line per month. Funds to come from account ending in .801.000.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Lautner and Commissioner Silas. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. And that would bring us into the prosecuting attorney, Title 4E grant application. Commissioner Rushton.
I would move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve amendment number 2 to the contract between Leelanau County and MDHHS, changing the contract number and incorporating changes per the attached articles.
Or
Any questions?
Quickly, who do you have handling this now for you?
This is Lori.
Oh, this is Lori.
This is the abuse neglect
Okay.
contract.
Got a few changes up there.
Pardon me?
Got a few changes up there.
Well, you're right, we have. Change is inevitable. But it's gone well. Our new Peggy's transitioning well into the child support position, which she's doing a good job, and Stacy's doing a good job at replacing Joan. And everything's no drama, no histrionics. Everything's good.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to recess at this point.
I would like to tell
I
the
think we're all
prosecutor, I
set.
like your shirt. It's very simple.
Everybody loves this. I gotta tell my wife, it's a real fall. It makes me look like a little pumpkin.
I was gonna say that, Joe. That's great.
I have to tell my wife, I mean, I've had women stop me on the street
and say, I really like your shirt, and that doesn't happen a lot to me.
Does Amy know that women are stopping you on the street?
I let her know once in a while,
Well,
you
she
know.
knows now if she watches our board on YouTube.
Yeah, we don't want to hear about it.
I've got a great story, but since this is being recorded, I won't tell it.
All right, we'll take a 10-minute break.
Thank you, Joe.
I really feel like I'm missing something if Joe could just stand in front of the camera for a second.
Joel, Tim.
Carol can't see your beautiful orange.
Ooh la la,
See the pumpkin shape?
Jolly pumpkin.
I'd like to call us back to order. I know we're having fun, but we have to get back to work. All right, so now we're at the treasurer's office, request to fill a deputy treasurer vacancy.
We back live?
Yes.
Michelle,
Commissioner West.
I move to recommend to the county.
See?
Yeah, now we're back in order.
We are live, that's what you asked. You know, but that's a whole different thing, and I didn't look, I'm sorry.
Here's time where we are.
Let us know when you're ready.
We are recording and I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Weston.
I move to recommend to the county board of commissioners to allow the county treasurer to seek and hire a suitable candidate for the deputy treasurer position.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, do the same sign. 7-0, the motion passes.
Thank you for the presentation.
You did an excellent job.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the
Now you're
rest.
back up to staff, John, so that's a good thing.
We want you to get there, we do.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us then to the county clerk, the non-union uniform gun allowance request. Yeah. You can talk from there, that's fine if you want.
Thank you. This is the same request that I bring forward to you every year. These are not covered by the union positions, and it's for the sheriff, under sheriff, court bailiffs, and the Marine deputies. For the first three I mentioned, it's for sheriff and under sheriff are uniform and gun. Bailiffs are uniform, Marine deputies are uniform.
Commissioner Rush.
I would move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the uniform and gun allowance for the following non-union personnel through payroll with appropriate taxes withheld if receipts are not provided.
Sometimes for cleaning, if they don't have receipts, then you have to tax it. If they have receipts to offset it, then we don't have to tax that money.
Okay. As indicated, can I just say that, as indicated?
As presented here.
As presented.
Or
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 7-0.
Yeah, excuse me, Will,
Yes, sorry.
I had
Go
a
ahead.
question. The court bailiff, you've got down for $150, and then it says 2 court bailiffs, each at $50. So that doesn't quite add up to me.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Explain it.
The senior court bailiff is $150. The 2 court bailiffs are $50.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional MERS payment.
I do.
Actually, it would be helpful because they can't see you on the
Correct.
screen for people that are watching it.
Thanks, Michelle.
The treasurer was going to stay with me, but anyway. I did talk to the treasurer. You had budgeted $250,000 out of the general fund in the 2020 budget. And we did make that payment for the additional MERS just last week. I think it's going to be an October expenditure. And we talked to John, and you'll notice I didn't put the budget amount, but in the delinquent tax revolving fund 516, it's a budget of $390,000. There's $358,750 in the contingency. And this money is mainly his administrative fees, delinquent interest, and interest earnings. And of that, he was comfortable, if you were to agree, about $100,000 for an extra MERS liability payment. And we'd like to be able to transfer it from the delinquent tax revolving to the general fund to make an extra payment.
Michelle, how will that be divided up?
I go and run the reports and I look at what those percentages are between all of the different groups, trying to keep as many as we can up to 80%.
Well, that was my question. You know, I know we have different.
Well, and there.
Buckets.
We do.
Let's say, and I was wondering if you could provide that information.
Oh, sure, I can email that to you if you'd like. And we do have one bucket, I mean, because that is a good explanation, for all of our new hires, and we're trying to keep that as close to 100% as we can. So we don't have another one, you know, that we're trying to make up. And we always look at, one or two are on a fixed payment schedule where others have different percentages. And we're looking to see where the employee base is as to what are the effects going to be when we even get more people. Because I just had Jen and we went over, I had her pull me a report. I wanted to see how many more people are set to retire and can pull from this group. How many are this? Because once they start pulling, it's going to increase that liability. So the longer, you know, people are working, it's keeping that liability down. But we've got at least 10, if not more, people that can draw today.
Well, that's why I was asking the question, so that you could provide the commissioners with that picture so that we could see, you know, long-term what that looks like.
And I don't know what the best answer is when doing it. It's just kind of the rationale I've used. I try to always swing it by Chet too, just to say, do you have a comfort level? Because
who knows?
Or is the goal to try to keep them below $1 million if we can get that? It's still a very low liability, but the idea is it's all relative if we can get it lower.
One other question, in the way the motion was written here, it's moved to approve this, but it's really a recommendation to approve.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, it's just the way that I worded it.
Okay, so I'll make that motion. I'll move to recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the transfer of $100,000 from the DTR Fund, number 516, to the General Fund, number 101, as an additional MERS liability payment. And I really appreciate that you took the time to discover how much money, in addition to our budgeted amount, that we've applied to the MERS.
Well, and we'll, since my cohort here, Mr. Gallagher, we'll keep working on him. But we want to do it within his comfort level too, because he's got to be comfortable with this.
Commissioner Lott.
Thank you. So this brings our additional MERS payments for 2020 up to $350,000.
Correct. The 250 was budgeted, and I think, Jen, don't we have 250 projected for next year?
Yes.
Yeah, 250. So this is our first time we're hitting these type of funds. The other payment from last week was all out of the general fund.
And so my other question was, and I'm not finding it, but we received something from John Gallagher that said our additional payments were $3,300,000 or something. We've made additional MERS payments, or no?
I haven't
find it.
I haven't seen.
Probably over the years, yeah.
Over the years, was it 3 million?
I would say, I'm just guessing here because I'm guessing if you look at the last 10 years.
We certainly could look at that. It could be. We've been, you know, some years we've been pretty good, so I can certainly go back and I'll talk to him.
Okay.
And we can get that between him and Jen, we can
So
get
this
that.
would be, we would add this 100,000, if this passes Tuesday night, we'll add this 100,000 onto that report we got. That wasn't included in the report we got from John, correct?
Okay, I can see about that report. I don't know if he copied me and I may not have seen it. And I will look at it because I had some ideas when I was doing it last week. Maybe not breaking down this full 100 amongst many, because sometimes I think it's better to just aim at one, at least to bring it down a little bit.
And we may, or may not, but depends, sometimes in December, we ask for another additional payment. Permission, so depending on where we are budget-wise in December, we may have another additional payment.
Great.
And do remember, when I get you that report, I do believe, Jen, am I not correct? It will be based off of December 31st of 2019, what those balances were that, or will I be able to use a quarterly? Last year.
It's the actuarial.
Yeah, I'll have to use the actuarial, but we'll get you as close as we can is what we know, and it's ever changing.
I just wonder, how do we get, this far behind that, that we've made millions of dollars extra payments?
Well, I'd say we didn't get behind. I would say we were very proactive. What's happened is it varies every year depending on who retires who comes, but also a lot of counties pay the minimum amount every year. I should say counties, a lot of units of government. You have chosen not to do that over the years. So it's not that you're behind, I would argue you're ahead, and that's why we're rated as some of the best in the state.
But I guess, I thought that on every payroll, there's a certain amount that gets taken out of their wages and a certain amount that we add to it.
There is,
Or we
but.
match, just like Social Security or Medicare.
But it depends on as more people draw,
But isn't that ratio, set up so that it
No.
pays their retirement?
No.
No, it doesn't work that way.
And that's-
It's not like Social Security, we pay a fixed rate.
Yeah.
And also, what you're going to see is over the years, I don't know, Commissioner Lautner may have been on the board back. I used to come, probably for my first 5 or 6 years here, every year I would come before you, and you would approve to give our current retirees a cost of living adjustment. We did it for about 4 or 5 years. Well, then the tide turned, and they were very appreciative of that because some of them hadn't had an adjustment since the 70s, and those are the only 5 adjustments because we don't have that automatic escalator like some groups do, which also increase their costs. But now, whenever you do enhancements to the MERS program, they look into the future, and if you're going to enhance, you now have to pay that liability up front. So it's not, I don't want to say hidden wouldn't be the right word, so it's not calculated in to increase your costs over time. You're paying up front for the anticipated exposure that you have. So things have changed since the beginning of
And maybe
MERS.
Michelle can help with this, but as I understand, every unit of government at one time made a decision how much they're gonna put per MERS. That's what they invoice us. That's the minimum amount that could change. And a lot of counties don't adjust that, and that sometimes that has got them in trouble. However, you have always been very proactive, so we pay the minimum amount, but every year you put more into it.
We have, how many closed groups do we have, 2 or 1? Oh, we have 4 closed groups. How many of those are on a set dollar amount? All 4? So all 4, we pay a specific amount of them every single month. The others are payroll based. But I'll get you those numbers. It's, I think we're in a good position. I mean, I know you don't like the liability, but it's really a low liability compared to others. And the interest that we make is, it's decent. It really helps a lot.
Commissioner Answer.
I'm going to disagree with the administrator in that we have not been paying as much to fully fund the pension plans over the years. There is no doubt that we have not been paying that in. For Leelanau County. So we are in the hole. And you say, how can this be? They have chosen not to fully fund the pension liability in the past. So we're playing catch up. Now, are we compared to other counties, we're in pretty good shape, but we're still in the hole. Don't think that we're not.
Well, I think we're kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We are paying a minimum amount plus extra every year, so we have been proactive.
Commissioner Locke.
But we also have to understand that we could never be fully funded because it's a moving target. We could be fully funded for 5 minutes and something can change. So the best we can do is try to stay ahead of it or on top of it as much as we can, and that we've done.
I can tell you, because I've been at the MERS conference, there are consultants that will tell you you should not be
Not
fully.
be 100.
You're a
fully
better
funded.
asset, you have better options with your financial resources than to put it all in MERS and not have the flexibility in case of emergency. If we're to do that, for example, I don't think we could have gone forward with the upgrades of the LEC project with the roof, with the HVAC and this building, if we were paying all that money into MERS. So there's a give and take there.
Yeah, the other thing was too, and I was on the board when we used to do those increases, but we also monitored other counties and saw where other counties were getting in trouble doing a lot of those things. We didn't want to be in that situation here either.
One major factor that we're gonna talk about, and it's good because we don't have to, is the post-retirement liability cost. For many counties, they have a significant MERS issue, but for some counties, their post-retirement benefit cost liability are even greater than their MERS percentage-wise. And we took care of that 8 years ago. We did those healthcare savings plans. It was a tough decision that all of you made, but we are one of the few units of government that has zero liability for post-retirement benefits. When I go to some of these MAC meetings and so forth, and they talk about it, that on the horizon is a much greater issue than the retirement cost. If you listen to Mr. Peacock, I think it was this year or last year, he actually commented us on that too, because many counties that he's dealing with have significant liabilities coming up with post-retirement, and according to new accounting guidelines, those have to be included. I don't know if it's this year or next year, but at some point, that's going to have a major issues for unit government. It will not impact us because we have zero liability there. So that's a huge plus that we don't talk about much, but that plays a major factor.
Commissioner Rush.
I think it's fair to say that this board over the last 8 to 10 years has made our MERS obligation a priority. Every year, we have not only paid what has been required, but we have gone out of our way at the end of our fiscal year to assess where the board is and how many more dollars we can throw at this liability. So I actually commend the board and staff for bringing that to us so that we can make those moves. Are we going to ever be fully funded? I doubt that we'll ever see that day. But I would encourage this board and any future board to stay on top of this issue so that those who are entitled to the MERS retirement have it when they leave.
Commissioner Ansel.
Next year, hopefully there will be a resolution to the lawsuits that are associated with the treasurer's office, that will have some kind of resolution to that and know what's happening. And the board can, at that point in time, I won't be here, hopefully some of you will be, that you will be able to look at that and say, maybe it'll be more next year when that issue is resolved, hopefully.
Well, and may I just add, just so you as commissioners know, to my recollection, we have never not paid our MERS. We have always paid the minimum, if not more, and we will continue that. And I do believe the board, whenever possible, will be aggressive, and we will continue to push that, because even if you were to get to 100%, which I don't believe you will, even if you dumped it in and you were 100% today, you won't be 100% tomorrow. It's only going to take a little bit, and you're going to be chasing something that you might not keep. That's why it's so difficult for agencies that do choose to withdraw from MERS. Your funding and how much you have to put into that program while trying to establish another sort of retirement program, because we've looked at it here, is really, it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money because you have to project 40 years into the future because you don't know who someone's beneficiary is going to be. So it's huge. But I do think the board is doing a really great job. We never miss our payments, and we will continue to be within John's comfort level, coming to you with aggressive measures.
And as remember, Bridge Magazine listed as one of the best run financial counties in the state. I believe we were number 9 out of 83.
Could be.
Us, and they gave us an A. If you read the media reports last week about not only Grand Traverse County, the Grand Traverse medical care facilities, about their pension liabilities, and the facilities looking at bonding, which I personally think was a bad move. And they brought up some articles. Some commissioners are concerned about that too, because you're never going to hit that target, and then you're just extending the debt out. So fortunately, we don't have to have those type of discussions. And really, Jen and Michelle deserve a lot of credit because they are truly on top of the MERS payments and which group should go where. So when Jen or Michelle say they check with me, yes, they check with me, and I say, okay, because I have great faith in the work that they've done. And so it's never an issue because they check with me, I think, out of courtesy, but I have great respect for the work that they've done. And I think they've done an excellent job of putting every penny in the right group. It's a tough balancing game, and it's a best case scenario, but I think they've done an outstanding job. Our auditors think we're in great shape with MERS, and Independent Magazine, Bridge, thinks we're great. And I do get calls from other counties sometimes asking what are we doing, because they look at our numbers compared to them. And it was really great to be at the meeting about a year ago with the Northern Michigan Association of Counties and what issues they were struggling with the upcoming post-retirement cost. That's just going to skyrocket because those have to be part of the audit. I think next year, sometime in the near future, and that's going to put lots of U.S. government in strict financial challenges if they have to add those post-retirement liability into their audit every year. So we're grateful for all the work that all of you done.
Any other comments? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Am I next
Yes.
again?
Yeah,
Yes.
next again.
We have the MIDC contract.
Did you want me to speak? It's pretty self-explanatory.
Commissioner Rushton.
I move to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to approve grant number 2021-57 between the State of Michigan, MIDC, LARA, and Leelanau County for the grant period October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, with an authorized budget of $221,985.72. Funding to come from fiscal year state grant contribution 169,204.76 and local share contribution of $52,780.96 as presented.
Or
Just a question of curiosity. As I read through this, SADO and NAPD, do we know, I tried to look those up.
Where is that?
It's on page 74. It's just under the describing the travel and the cost. I was just wondering what the organizations were.
Well, I wrote it, so I could probably tell you.
Well, I tried to look them up online, but I trust me, I'm sure it wasn't that.
Oh, those are memberships that have to do for the attorneys or professional associations. I know I've got it in my office. I can't tell you exactly what they are. And they're recommended by the MIDC program. They kind of give us the guidance as to what these things are going to cost and what they're recommending that the attorneys partake in. Because right now we have 3 court-appointed attorneys that are handling the.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, do the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to compliment the clerk again before she leaves on this, because this program technically reports to me. However, when it comes to the financial matters, I rely on the clerk. And I can say, I think Michelle would agree, that we are the envy of many counties the way we have it structured. A lot of counties are really struggling to meet these requirements and to have the staff to do it and so forth. And we're fortunate that from the beginning, we put in a part-time position of 10 hours per week. We just happened to find a retired Grand Traverse County employee that did it by the name of Al Crocker.
Our costs are
fantastic job.
We've been able to maximize our costs. I mean, our overhead is very low.
Yeah. But a lot of counties are really struggling. Who's going to take care of this, and who's going to manage it at what cost? And so it's really worked out very well for us. And several counties have called us asking how we have structured this. And it really helps that we have the facilities we have too, so we didn't have to revise the facilities.
And do we have a 10-year contract with that particular person?
I have to talk to his agent first.
I was
to get
gonna
that
say we need to
approval.
work on that. We need
Yes,
to get a
yes,
contract.
I've been in dialogue with his agent. In fact, the agent, the paycheck goes right to the agent also.
Yeah, and that's
Is that legal?
I haven't been sued yet, so.
He has a choice.
Yeah.
As long as the agent's happy, then.
All right, so then that brings us to the review of the update to the early childhood contract.
Yes, last month you approved the proposal from the health department for the early childhood. And we forwarded that proposal to legal counsel. And what you have in your package is a draft proposal contract with them. Obviously, this would have to be approved by their legal counsel and their board also.
I think we just want to move this forward to next week.
Move.
You say you sold it.
I moved, so we can move it to next week.
Supported. Okay. Any other statements or questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. So that brings us then to the 2021 budget and 2021 appropriations.
Yeah, this will basically happen next week. As you know, we have to approve our budget next Tuesday evening. As part of the agenda, there will be an opportunity for the public for their input. I believe those ads have been in the paper, right?
I placed them twice, and the budget was put out on the counter yesterday for anyone that wishes to review, or on Monday. That was yesterday.
Yeah, so we're in compliance. We just want to move this forward.
Commissioner Long.
I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to forward and set for approval the 2021 General Appropriations Act resolution to the October 13th, 2020 meeting, public hearing, and annual meeting.
Second.
Any questions? Commissioner Wesson.
And that includes the budget rules, right?
Yes.
I'd like some discussion about continuing with the commissioners looking at vacant positions. You know, we established that through this year,
Yeah,
but
that actually expires, your motion expires December 31st. If you don't put it in the budget rules for 2021, and currently it's not in there.
I think.
Your motion was that expired December 31st.
I think it would be responsible to include that in for 2021.
So would that be added to would that be amendment to this motion?
Well, what we can do is forward the resolution that you passed
Yeah, I want to do
in,
that,
I
Jen.
can't remember when you passed it, May or June, and see if you want to extend it or make it part of your budget rules. Would you agree, Madam Clerk, that'd be the best way?
Yes, I mean, we can bring forward the motion in November, December, and do what you said, or we can add it to the rules, whichever.
Yeah, rather
I'd
than
like, I
complicating
want to read
this, I
it
think-
again, yeah.
All right, we'll add that to that, and make a decision. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a resolution, so at our next one, it would be a roll call, but here we can just have a regular vote to move it forward. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. That brings us to airport governance update.
Yeah, thank you. After Mr. Klein came to the board here, I think about a month ago, Mr. Klein, Mr. Alger, Grand Traverse County and I have been meeting on a weekly basis trying to prepare. All three units of government have agreed for this joint meeting on next Tuesday, the 13th at 2 p.m. There's some legal issues with this, but we're working through those. But either end of the day today or tomorrow, you'll get an email with the agenda and the proposed articles of incorporation. And we did what you requested, put them as a commission or as an authority, and they're color coded. And so those will be presented to you. There's no action that we take next Tuesday. It is just a study session. And depending on how you wish to proceed after that, we may put some resolutions on the agenda in November. But Tuesday is just a study session workshop. And like I said, and maybe I received them. We worked out the agenda because we have to make sure we're in compliance with all 3 units of government's bylaws and so forth. So it's gonna be a Zoom meeting, we're gonna be the official host, which means Laura will be hosting it. But most of you will be here, some can be on Zoom. Grand Traverse County will do the same thing, and the board, the airport board will also do that. So there'll be 3 under, for example, public comment. There'll be the Leelanau County portion of public comment. There'll be the Grand Traverse County portion of public, and the road, or the airport commission public comment. So there's some technical things, but in terms of going forward, we're set. Like I said, hopefully, in the day today or tomorrow, you'll get those proposed articles of incorporation and the agenda.
And it'll be, I mean, then we ourselves can be here just like this if you want. You know, you can be at home too.
Yeah.
We will be hosting it here and using the public now.
So we did try to answer all the questions commissioners had in all the meetings. Depending on how you decide to go forward, at some point then we're gonna have to schedule some public hearings, and you're gonna take some actions, and then the FAA has to approve all this. And there'll be a period of time where they will review it, but we'll review all that next Tuesday.
Any questions about that? All right, we would move forward then to the CDBG.
Yeah, thank you. As you know from my previous comments.
Excuse me,
Yes,
I had
I'm
my hand up. I did have a question.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
As far as the meeting, it's next Tuesday at 2, is that correct?
Yes.
And will that be considered then a work session? Is that a work
Yes.
study group or? Okay, so
Yeah,
no
it's
final
not a
decision.
special meeting,
Okay,
and you will not be asked to vote
Thank
on
you.
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
missed.
thank you.
All right, so then now we'll move on to D.
All right, as you want to know from my previous comments, as part of the Federal CARES Act, the state of Michigan was awarded a set of funding, and then part of that was allocated through the Community Development Block Grant to counties. We were awarded $368,000. That's to cover all units in Leelanau County. The critical point is we're not competing with other units of government for this money. This is money that has been designated for Leelanau County. And that means any unit of government under Leelanau County, in Leelanau County can apply, but they have to apply through us. I have met with all the township officials. I gave them the opportunity to participate. I've been meeting with the fire departments. I've reached out to the health department and to the tribe. We got clarification that the Grand Traverse Band is eligible to apply under us, and also the health department is. Those 2 units will probably be very interested. It appears that the townships have not really allocated much money. This is reimbursable money, and most of them, we're grateful for the opportunity, but will not participate. The fire departments may be participating. Probably next week, I will host a meeting with our liaison. One gentleman from Lansing has been appointed to be our contact person for Leelanau County, and we've been in regular contact with him on a weekly basis. The first step was we had to send a letter that we were interested. We did that. Surprisingly, a lot of counties have chosen not to do that because there's some confusion on it. If you look at the grant, it's under the Community Development Block Grant Program. If you look at that program, there's a lot of, I would say, bureaucracy that needs to take place. It talks about environmental studies and all these assets and so forth. So I think a lot of counties look at that and says, we don't have that much money to be allocated. We really need to go through the process. However, and with Trudy's assistant, Trudy and I talked to our director, because we're not building anything, and we can't use this money for housing projects, we're not constructing anything, they're gonna waive all those requirements for us, which is very, very helpful. And the environmental study that Trudy did several years ago, they verbally said they would accept that
I was just
for
gonna
our study.
ask you if that would work.
So that puts us in a whole different category. Fortunately for us, we filled out all those initial papers. They had to do a complete background search on me, passed.
Can we get a report though?
Yes, yeah. And so we're moving forward. The next step is you have to pass the resolution that's in your packet. As you can tell, we kept it very simple, and that's at the advice of our liaison, because we want flexibility on how to use those funds. As of date, Michelle and Jen have done a great job keeping track of our expenses. I don't think we're at 25,000 yet for reimbursable, that plexiglass, everything. However, going forward, once we have this resolution passed and so forth, we can actually ask our liaison to get pre-approval for something. So there are things, especially with the health department, there's a lot of things that they have already spent money on, they can get reimbursement, but I've been talking to them, and there's some things we may wish to purchase that are strictly COVID related. Why we strictly as a reimbursement, they will let us know in advance if it qualifies or not. The biggest thing in there, if you look at the resolution, and this is at the advice of our liaison, we are talking about internet service and options. Now, we're kind of generic, but he has verbally approved this resolution. I didn't want to send it to you and have him come back and forth. So that means technically, of that $367,000, if we come up with a plan providing additional internet service in the county, we could probably use some of those resources for that. So I think that's very good news for us. Because as you know, we've been talking about this for years, and how do we fund it? This may be a source. Once again, we're not competing with other counties. And I'm sure our liaison will not say this, but he wants this money allocated and spent. That's what the money's for. His job is to work with counties to make sure it's allocated properly. And so he's been very good to work with. So next step is two things you need to do. One, you need to pass this resolution next Tuesday evening. And then we need to set up a public hearing on this. And I'm recommending we do it the last week of October. And if you could look at your calendars, and if you could, if you do it now, that'd be great. If you can't, we can get back to you, but we need to publicize a public hearing on this and give the public the opportunity to have input. We don't have to specifically lay out how we're going to spend the money, but we have to give the public the opportunity to input on plans that they may want to see. So someone from the public could come forward and say, we really need to do this in Leelanau County, in my township or my village. As long as it's COVID related, it cannot buy software. We clarified that because Michelle had a great idea about software. That cannot count. We cannot spend it for housing rehab.
What about labor?
If it's overtime cost that we have incurred, yes. We may be able to get some of the senior services money back, which I'll talk about later. But it has to be directly related to COVID. We have to allocate the money up front and then submit reimbursements. The deadline is December 31st, so we have some time. But every penny we spent since January 20th, we have been tracking. And so we're in very good shape. In fact, he was very complimentary. We had a conference call last Friday, and he has 20 counties, and he says we're at the front of that list because we've been so proactive with this.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
Yes, I move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the Leelanau County Resolution 2020, number to be assigned, Community Development Block Grant Authorizing Resolution for the CARES Act.
Second.
Okay, so this again, this will just be a regular vote, but at our next meeting, it will be a roll call. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Commissioner Sotos.
I just was, Jen, are you looking at the 19th, week of the 19th of the?
Probably the 26th, because we have to place the ads in the paper and so forth. I prefer the 26th if possible.
Okay.
And this, I'm sure, will be a short hearing.
On Monday, the 26th?
Well, that week of the 26th.
That's the only day I'm available that week.
I'm available Monday.
You want to do it at 9 o'clock on Monday?
No.
No?
Can you do it in the afternoon on Monday?
Hold on a minute. Yeah, on 9 o'clock, yeah, I can share some stuff, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, or do you want to, I mean, we can do it in the afternoon too.
26?
Well, let's do it at 9 o'clock on Monday. That's okay.
So Monday, October 26th,
Yeah.
9 o'clock. Okay, we will price the proper ads and so forth. And this should be a fairly simple public hearing. We do not have to have specific plans, which we have included in our resolutions, just general topics are sufficient. But we have to give the public a chance to express their views or their ideas. They have some ideas how this money can be allocated to. So that's really the main purpose of the public hearing. So Monday, October 26th at 9 a.m., right? Thank you very much.
All right. So then we move on to the road commission vacancy update.
Yeah, the deadline was the 24th, and we received 6 applicants. All of you received an email Friday from Morrow with the names and the applications. I guess we're just asking how you wish to proceed with this. In the past, you've had special meetings where you interviewed all candidates.
I think that would be appropriate to start.
And the question is, when do you want to do it? Do you want to wait till after the election, or do you want to do it before?
Interview?
It's going to be pretty tough to do it before, I think.
For interviewing
Yes.
candidates?
Yeah.
My thought personally is that we should wait till after, for 2 reasons. Number one is we will know who is going to be seated on the road commission, and maybe one of these candidates. And second reason is to interviews will be public, and that could give an unfair advantage to one candidate over another if we do it before the election.
Well, if you want to go that route, I suggest we do it either after the executive meeting on the 10th or before the regular meeting on the 17th. That's after the election.
I think it's a good idea. Either day is good.
And you're going to be here anyway. I suggest maybe, since we never know how long the executive meetings last, maybe we do it on the 17th. Let's say 3 o'clock.
I have another board meeting at 3 o'clock on that day.
Could you do it maybe in the morning so there's a break between?
Yeah, I mean, first, I was trying to save twice coming in, but,
Yeah.
or we could say the afternoon of the 10th, just push it 1 o'clock or 1:30, just to play it safe, give you time for lunch.
I
never know
prefer
how
that.
long people last.
I don't want to make 2 trips out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be deer hunting that week of the
On the
16th. That's what you're really doing.
How about the afternoon of the 10th?
Yeah, that'd be okay.
Hello?
I don't anticipate anything controversial.
Commissioner Rettenbach?
The Solid Waste Committee meets at 1 o'clock that day or 1:30.
On the 10th?
Correct.
At what time, 11:30?
1:30.
Oh, 1:30.
So you're training on the 5th, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We could do it on, that's right at the election, and that's,
No, that doesn't work. I don't have.
I know, I was
Yeah.
saying that for the clerk's office will not work.
What about Monday the 9th?
Yeah, I was just trying to avoid a special trip for commissioners. I mean, yeah, we could do a special meeting, but I was hoping to have a save the trip.
When is our meeting for committees and boards and commissions?
You have not picked that. We usually do that in November or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's November, December. I'm okay the 9th in the morning.
9th through the 13th,
Yes.
Friday the 13th.
So, Friday the 13th.
I know for many of you, it's usually just come at 9 o'clock. Is there a day that week that?
Monday will work for me on the 9th.
November 9th?
I'm
Well,
open on the 9th.
I'm sorry?
I'm open on the
Okay.
9th.
November 9th at 9 a.m. Everyone's available?
Does that work for you? October 9th at 9 a.m.
And I'll check, we have time, I'll check the format last time, I believe we did them half hour apart. So we did time for the presenters to give an opening statements and have some questions. What? Pardon me? Your question?
Okay, which day did you say?
November 9th.
November 9th
And,
at 9.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I said. All right.
okay, so we'll post this as a special meeting as it gets closer. All right, thank you.
questions or statements on that?
Oh, I do have one.
Go ahead.
One of the candidates is employed by the county. Is there a prohibition?
We'd have to get opinion. He's not an elected officer, and we don't have direct supervision with the road commission, so we can clarify that.
I just don't want to make, I want to make sure we don't do
Yeah.
something wrong.
Right, no, we would clarify that
Okay, thank you.
beforehand.
Any other questions? Then we'll move on then to the non-first responder hazard pay options.
Yeah, just an update. We did issue the checks for the first responders, and the state has already deposited the funds in our account. In fact, we actually got the money from the state before we issued the checks, which I thought was interesting because that's the whole process they had to set up. But anyway, so that is done. With all of you said that when we approve this in August, you said you'd want to review the non-first responders after we got a decision from the state on the first responders. So those checks have gone out. MERS was not included. We passed a resolution, and the state has reimbursed us, so that chapter is closed. But you want to have a discussion on non-first responders.
Commissioner Rush.
So if I can ask at this point, what, if any, was the cost, the direct cost to the county for these checks to go out?
If you want to take a break, I can go to the office and get it for you.
Well, can you get a ballpark number? Can you, I thought.
It was the cost of FICA. I did not.
Thought it was $4,000.
I was thinking it was
I was thinking 4. I said 4 and then I said 7, so.
It was
Yeah.
8, it was 8 if we went to
Well,
1,000.
give me a second, I'll go get it. I have no problem giving it, it's handy.
Well, we have the cost for the non-union also, or the non.
Yeah,
the
Jen
non-
gave you the complete breakdown there. I just don't, I didn't bring that. I thought you would have a dialogue that we can bring that information back to you next Tuesday.
I have the breakdown for for everyone else outside of what we did last time.
Well,
Oh, I didn't know they were.
I just wanted a ballpark idea of what our bottom line cost.
I want to say
So it's right around
4,300. That sounds really close, I think.
Between $3,000 and $4,000, is that
I'd say, I think it's just over 4,000.
just over 4?
Yeah.
Okay,
And we can, of course, get you that actual number.
sure, I'm sure.
I want to say it's 4,300. I could be off some, but it's going to be, that sounds right.
It
Doesn't it, Michelle?
sounds pretty close.
And if we, and I thought the number, if it was a non-first, it was about 27,000.
It depends how much you wish to.
Right,
allocate.
I mean, based on Commissioner Rettenbach.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of the non-first responder hazard pay to be awarded to the other county employees, both full-time and part-time. I think that there's been enough contact with the other people in our building and that everyone has been stressed out by this isn't exactly the word that I want to say, but that they have been required to become in contact with hazardous situations. And I just feel that the non-first responders really deserve that pay as well.
Commissioner Sotos.
I agree, and would make a motion if we can do that at this point in time, or are we only discussion?
You could make a motion to forward to next week.
Okay, I would like to make a motion and to offer the same amount and the same conditions, thank you, for our non-responders, and have this seconded, forwarded to next week for final approval.
No, that's okay. I have a question. One of my questions is, do we have employees that did not come to work or took, what do they call it, leave? Are you including?
No, we did not furlough any employees.
Okay, that was my question. If we had employees who didn't actually have to come into the building and serve.
Well, some did have option to work at home, which is part of the order, but everyone was working.
Well, so if they were working from home, they didn't have the same exposure.
But not on a regular basis. Now, the courts are completely separate, so when I say that, our non-court employees still have the option, some of them, not many do with it from working home, because that is part of the governor's order, that we have to allow them that option. But I think the courts are completely separate, so I think many of them have been working at home, or remotely, I should say. Outside of that, in our departments here, outside of maybe the prosecutor's office, I'm not aware of people working remotely, let's say remote, I won't say home, so working remotely.
Commissioner Redenbach.
Yes, I'm not sure if anyone has seconded the motion yet, but I just wanted to say that I want to include the part-time employees as well, and I'm not sure that they were included in the first responder hazard pay. And I think that it's important that we include all employees, whether they be full-time or part-time. And this would extend to, anyone who hasn't received the hazard pay that was provided to the first
Oh, just for
responders.
clarification, the part-time first responders were included in the hazard pay.
Where?
Yeah, they were, yes. Anyone who's on the payroll as a first responder received the pay, who was eligible by the state definition.
Okay, well then I will second.
Okay, this has been seconded by Commissioner Lautner,
Okay,
and it is just to move it forward to next week. It wasn't a statement about who it was for or anything. It was just so that we'll have it on our agenda for next week.
okay, thank you.
I believe her motion did say full part-time.
Okay, good. It did include full and part-time, I'm sorry. Commissioner Lautner.
And with the same conditions, so that will be, we won't pay the MERS on
Yes,
it, et cetera.
you pass a resolution, so you would not have to pass that again.
So I know the clerk knows exactly what we want, so there may be a slightly different motion placed before us Tuesday that will be all inclusive of everything we're talking about.
There would be, and the administrator is correct, you don't need that motion to be adopted again, but I think just maybe for peace of mind with everyone, it doesn't hurt to include that motion applies if it is excluded from MERS.
Yeah, I think in the final motion you can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna assume it's based on people that are currently on the payroll.
Okay.
So someone, and I can't think of, but if someone resigned in April or May, we're talking about people that are on the payroll when you officially pass this motion next week, correct? Just so we have the right numbers for you next week.
Yes.
Would it exclude elected officials or not?
It does not include
No,
elected.
because we did
Well,
that.
that's up to you. That's up to you. They are employees. So you'd have to clarify that.
Okay.
Only excludes us.
It does not include, unless you put it in the motion.
No.
Did we include the sheriff?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I assume you,
He's in the first responder.
yeah, he already got this.
But he's an elected official.
Yeah, but he got the money.
So
He was included in the first responders.
if it's the same conditions, then it would apply to,
That's a good point.
But you're talking about people who are not eligible. I assume you were talking about people that, who, I think you'd want to exclude anyone who was eligible in the first round, right?
Correct. If they've already been paid, we don't want to pay them
Yes.
again.
Right.
So everyone who's eligible on their first responder and receive their money would not be eligible. And we can work the final motion.
Right.
The only people who are not eligible in the sheriff's department were the two support staff people by the terms of the grant, because they're support staff people. So for example, they would be eligible, they weren't the first time. But anyone who received a check the first time will not be eligible under this motion if it's passed next week, correct? So make sure everything is the same.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. All right, so then that brings us to the update of W.G. Wazinski.
Yes, originally, if you see, I was going to recommend a closed session with this and talk to legal counsel. However, we don't have to do that, as last week we were notified that the federal judge dismissed the case against Leelanau County. And so therefore that chapter is closed for now. It was dismissed. As you know from my previous updates, the judge originally requested mediation by the magistrate in that federal jurisdiction. The magistrate wrote a very strong opinion recommending dismissal of all charges against Leelanau County as being baseless and without merit, and the federal judge agreed and signed on the order last week. So that has been dismissed.
Commissioner West.
Between the court case and the hearing, the county has spent a fair amount of time and money,
Mostly time.
which is money.
MMRA has covered our
And we
legal
did
costs.
have an attorney there yesterday. Is there an option to seek repayment of costs?
Well, no, I don't think so, because MMRA covered our legal costs. That was not part of the request for dismissal. And so we had, the case has been dismissed. The only net cost outside of hours here spent, and they have been significant, is we did request the same attorney. There was an appeal board hearing, construction court, yesterday. We requested that our attorney be present for that, and that's a separate cost. That will come from the construction code's budget, but it would not be significant. Part of his request was that he did not appeal the decision made several years ago. Under Michigan statute, there is no deadline date for an appeal. Counties have the option of adding a deadline date. Because we have so few appeals, we never have done that. And our attorney says most counties have not done that. However, we are having a building safety committee meeting Thursday, and that's one of the agendas. I would like us to modify our rules to add, I'm gonna guess, a 60-day window of appeal, so someone can't come back 2 years later, or 3 years later, or 4 years. Technically, that's why we had the meeting yesterday, because even though it's been over 2 years, he wanted this appeal. And fortunately, I won't go into detail because it was over a 2-hour meeting yesterday, but the appeal board voted 4-0 to deny him this request.
Any other questions?
We're done with this for now, as far as we know.
I'd say we're done with this chapter.
Yeah.
I would not be, I won't go into great details. This has been an ongoing battle with the township and association since 1992. Most of his issues are really with the township zoning that we have no authority over. And we were dragged in this lawsuit. We have asked in the beginning to be dismissed for numerous reasons. And it was finally granted. His issues are mostly with the township and zoning, which we have no legal standing in.
Well, in his association.
And his association, yes.
Can we move on to review of financials? Anything?
I had just one question. On page 4, plans and accounts, we had a gray stone garden for some perennials for buildings and grounds. Are those for our gardens out front?
Who was that vendor again? I'm sorry.
Greystone, GRE?
Yeah, Jerry did that, I'm not sure.
I think it was.
Because we're out here, right? Because for the hill.
And this, you made
It
the
says-
original request and you approved it, and it's just for,
It was $15.98 for
Yes.
the front gardens, flower at Government Center for the front gardens.
Okay. And they are beautiful. Chet remarked on that earlier in the day, and they've been doing a great job taking care of those. They do look beautiful. I think that's the only question that I had. Because the ones on the hill, the soil conservation pays for it.
Yeah,
But
they-
this isn't,
they-
these aren't going there. Okay.
Commissioner Redenbaugh. Go ahead.
On page 9 of claims, Northern Building Supply, the Sheriff's Department, there's almost like $2,000 worth of supplies for training. What is that?
I'm guessing here, based on what the sheriff told us last month, they have reconfigured a lower level, the basement there, and are building a training center for their employees there, so they can simulate different incidents and do some training there. I have not seen it, so I don't know the specifics, but I believe that's what it's for.
That's what he indicated.
Sure it is.
Well, I just was confused about the amount and how much training or what kind of training. Are they talking about like archery or?
No, I don't think so.
I think what,
You know, even before this, they have had a shooting range down there for those, it's the subsonic rounds. They're not full power rounds. They shoot a little plastic bullet out, and they can have simulated exercises. And he was expanding that area down there to include, you know, structures like, okay, I gotta go into a room and clear a room. How do I do that? Well, they'll have a room there that they can go in, and there'll be, you know, targets in there, simulate hostages and stuff, so you don't shoot the innocents and you only shoot the bad guys, that type of thing.
and it'll interchange, so they can't, he was saying they won't be able to, cheat on it, because next time they go through the same
It can be rearranged.
it'll be rearranged
Yep.
in different panels and stuff.
Okay, so it is able to be moved. Just sounded like a lot of money for something that I didn't really understand. Thank you.
I can help with that a little bit too. Originally, they wanted this to go under their training, their education fund. And I did speak with the auditor on that this is not a training function. And so that is why it's under capital outlay, less than 5,000. Because you're creating lumber and someone built structures. So that is not for education line item.
So they will train with it, but will have a capital asset.
That's correct. It has to be expensed, not under the education line item.
Yeah, that's
Right.
okay.
If they wanted to purchase a hitting dummy, then you could do that under a 960 education. But now when you're taking construction supplies and someone's building you an apparatus.
Right. And he did say there's a potential for a revenue source from this. We can hope.
Don't count on that.
I'm not counting on it, I said there's potential.
We would have, on the side, we may have some liability issues if we let other people come in and use that are not employed, so that's a whole separate discussion.
Yeah, well, that's what NLRA is for.
Commissioner Rushing, you have?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, maybe we can ask the sheriff to invite us over and show us what he's done. So we have a clearer understanding of what his intent is over there for training purposes.
Any other questions about that, or financials? Seeing none, we'll move on. Any special reports? How about now, so this is time for public comment.
Oh, commissioner reports?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just a
Well,
simple.
public comments next, then
Well, she's
commission.
gonna go up on.
No,
There's
she's
two
got a
commissioner
report.
comments after that. She wants
Oh,
a
no,
report.
sorry, I'm off. I'm wrong. Well,
Well,
It'll be a-
maybe we can do that. Well, I'll
Public
just
comment.
start public comment. If we have anyone that wants to do public comment, please call in at 231-256-8109, 231-256-8109. And while we're waiting for a call, we have commissioner comment.
oh, thank you. I just simply wanted to share that the Leland interim recycling site is open as of last Friday. And I was over there yesterday, and it's being used, so it should take a lot of the pressure off Sutton's Bay. A number of people that were there at the time said, oh, it's nice not to have to go to Sutton's Bay. So I know that we're shifting people, so.
That's
it's
not your
going well.
Uh,
picture.
Yes.
Oh, amazing you could recognize that.
Very good, Commissioner Rushing.
And I would just like to bring to light that, I'm sure many of you are aware of that Beta has put a bid in on a piece of property on Lafreniere and are currently in the process of moving forward with a new structure there. So everything seems to be moving. It seems slow, but not really with COVID and all of that. So hopefully here in a very short timeframe, we'll have a little bit more information, maybe some blueprints or something that we can show all for what they has planned for their new facility.
Commissioner Suisville, I was wondering, is there any movement on the Pop Road Center?
That has been held up a bit only because we're still in search of an engineer to do the drawings. We keep striking out on that. Seems to be a very busy time for engineers, and Trudy has been working hard trying to find one. She does have a communication out to another name that was provided to us, so hopefully this person may be available to do it, but that's the only hope.
Because you could have an architect draw it up and then an engineer would stamp it. You know, there is that's another possibility that people have thought through.
Good suggestion. I'll check with the zoning administrator, and what he gave us, it says certified engineer to do the drawings, but I'll see if we can, that would certainly be a lovely workaround.
Yeah, because that's, sometimes the engineer will be willing to look at it and stamp it if it's drawn up by an architect.
Thank you. Good suggestions. Oh, and I should mention too, on the Leland, there are directional signs. You know, just encourage people to not enter and exit off of Oak Road. That's the residential area. Stay within the commercial area, which is Edwards Street.
All right, then I guess we have approval. Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to, I don't have any amendments and transfers. Commissioner Lautner?
No. I would recommend approval of claims and accounts, $78,938.30.
Support. Is it 78 or 79?
78,000.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, do the same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
I would recommend approval of post ballot $4,452,822.70.
Support. I think that's Peach. Yes. Is that Peachy? Hello? Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Peachy? Hello?
She's waiting to hear.
Yes, can you hear me? All right, I'm going to put you on speaker.
Commissioner Reichenbach lost her.
Oh, okay. So did she vote for the finance?
Are you in favor of the?
She missed the
motion
first
for
financial.
finance? We're in claims and accounts. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 7-0. Okay, so then we have post audit. You did say that we had support. I guess I missed that.
Lautner and Wessel.
Okay. So all those in favor, please say yes or raise your hand.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All those opposed, either one of those signs, motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.